The story did not erupt with headlines or flashing alerts. There was no press conference, no viral interview clip, no dramatic reveal delivered under studio lights. Instead, it moved quietly, almost invisibly, until the impact was unavoidable. What began as background chatter online suddenly carried the force of a shockwave. According to widespread digital speculation and whispered accounts from those claiming insider knowledge, Mendez Harris allegedly reached a breaking point after remaining silent for years. And when he finally hinted at certain experiences, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Nothing was said outright. No official statement was released. No direct accusations were placed on record. Yet once the implication entered the public space, it refused to stay contained. Social media lit up almost instantly. Forums, comment sections, and fan pages began dissecting every word, every pause, every perceived meaning behind what was allegedly suggested. Sources claim that Mendez alluded to private encounters specifically involving hotel rooms that connected Kirk Frost and Kendra Robinson in ways the public had never been meant to consider. While no explicit details were confirmed, the mere suggestion of secrecy was enough to ignite outrage, disbelief, and relentless speculation. What made this moment so volatile was not simply the implication itself, but the source of it. Mendez was not viewed as an outsider chasing attention. He was perceived as someone who had been close enough to see things others never had access to. Someone who had been inside the circle. That proximity changed everything. When a person with perceived insider knowledge hints at events that allegedly took place behind closed doors, audiences do not treat it as casual commentary. They lean in, they listen, and they begin to question everything they thought they knew. Almost immediately, one question echoed louder than the rest. Why now? Why would Mendez choose this particular moment to break years of silence, even indirectly? What had shifted emotionally or situationally that made him feel compelled to speak? At least imply after so much restraint. And if even a fraction of what he was hinting at carried truth, what did that mean for relationships that fans had long believed were stable and transparent? Once the idea of secret hotel room encounters entered the conversation, privacy ceased to exist. Nothing remained insulated from scrutiny. Every past interaction suddenly felt suspect. And as it turned out, this moment was not the climax of the story, it was only the opening act. To understand why these alleged implications hit with such intensity, it is necessary to look backward. This situation did not emerge in isolation. It is rooted in years of emotional complexity, unresolved tension, blurred loyalty, and fractured trust involving Mendez, Harris, Kirk Frost, and Kendra Robinson. Fans did not react strongly because of one comment. They reacted because this moment tapped into a long history they had been subconsciously tracking. Mendez has long been perceived as someone with deep awareness of the group's internal dynamics. His personal history has been public, complicated, and frequently scrutinized. Yet what stood out most was how often he chose silence during previous controversies. While narratives formed and accusations flew around people adjacent to him, Mendez appeared to prioritize restraint over reaction. That pattern made his alleged decision to hint now feel deliberate rather than impulsive. Silence, when maintained, for years carries meaning when finally broken. Kirk Frost's history, by contrast, has consistently been surrounded by questions of judgment and boundaries. Over time, fans have watched him navigate situations where trust appeared strained, sometimes openly and sometimes away from public view. Because of that past, rumors tend to attach to his name with ease. Even without evidence, speculation finds traction when history has already laid the groundwork. In situations like this, confirmation is not required for suspicion to thrive. Kendra Robinson occupies a different space in this emotional landscape. She has long been viewed as composed, professional, and fiercely protective of her private life. That image is precisely why the suggestion of secrecy felt so jarring to many observers. It clashed with expectations, and when public perception collides with implication, the resulting tension feels personal rather than distant. The audience is not just processing gossip, they are reconciling a contradiction. For years, Subtle moments had fueled quiet speculation, awkward exchanges, careful wording, noticeable distance during interactions. None of these moments proved anything on their own, but collectively they created an undercurrent that fans sensed long before this story surfaced. According to online commentary, Mendes may have felt that certain narratives were being shaped. Selectively, some truths elevated while others remained buried. That imbalance, real or perceived, often becomes the catalyst that pushes someone to speak after prolonged silence. Importantly, this backstory is emotionally charged because it is built on familiarity. These are not strangers whose lives briefly intersected. Their histories overlap in ways the public only partially understands. That overlap creates expectations of loyalty. And when loyalty feels compromised, the emotional response can be powerful. By the time the present moment arrived, audiences were not reacting to a single alleged implication. They were responding to years of unresolved questions. The rumor did not feel new, it felt like a confrontation with the past. And once the past is reopened, every silence begins to feel intentional. Every vague comment feels loaded. Every unanswered question grows louder. The real escalation began when the alleged comments stopped being dismissed as vague shade and started being interpreted as deliberate exposure. What initially sounded cryptic quickly hardened into a narrative that people believed they could decode. And once the internet decides there is something to decode, restraint disappears entirely. According to widespread online discussion, Mendes did not offer specifics. No names were formally mentioned. No dates were confirmed. No evidence was presented. Instead, there were references to late nights, private stays, and conversations that allegedly did not happen in public spaces. That was enough. Fans rapidly connected those references to Kirk Frost and Kendra Robinson, framing the implication as something intentionally hidden. The conflict deepened because of how the implication was received. Mendes was not seen as speculating from afar. He was seen as speaking from proximity. A perceived closeness became the engine driving the narrative. The conversation shifted away from asking whether the story was true and toward asking why Mendes would hint at it if it were not. That shift mattered, allowed belief to replace verification. As the narrative spread, fans began constructing. Timelines, old hotel appearances resurfaced. Event photos were re-examined. Innocent coincidences were reframed as clues. None of this confirmed anything, but together it created the illusion of a pattern. And once people believe a pattern exists, escalation becomes self-sustaining. For Kirk Frost, the impact was immediate. His history meant neutrality was not an option. Silence was interpreted as guilt by some and restraint by others. Every hour without a response became a point of debate. Meanwhile, supporters argued that responding would only legitimize speculation built on implication rather than proof. Kendra Robinson faced a different, but equally intense, pressure. She became the focal point of speculation without saying a word. Her privacy, once respected, was suddenly treated as suspicious. The absence of her voice became a canvas onto which others projected assumptions. Then came the first major twist. Observers began realizing that nothing concrete had actually been revealed. No details had emerged. No confirmations followed. No accusations were explicitly made. What had changed was not the information, it was the confidence with which people believed it. The power of the story came entirely from interpretation. This realization split the audience. Some felt manipulated, arguing that hinting without proof was irresponsible. Others believed implication alone was meaningful, asserting that people only speak when they have something to protect themselves from. Both sides spoke with certainty, and that certainty kept the conflict alive. As the debate intensified, language shifted, alleged quietly disappeared, possibly turned into probably, and probably evolved into everyone knows. This linguistic drift was critical. It transformed speculation into assumed truth without anyone explicitly stating it. The most unsettling aspect was that Mendes no longer needed to say anything else. The story had escaped him. The narrative now belonged to the audience, shaped by memory, bias, and expectation. The conflict transformed from being about hotel rooms to being about credibility and belief. Escalation did not come from new revelations. It came from repetition. Each retelling added confidence where none had existed. Screenshots circulated without context. Old moments were reframed as foreshadowing. Momentum replaced substance. The shared silence of Mendes, Kirk, and Kendra created a vacuum, and online vacuums are always filled with assumptions. Pressure mounted, particularly on Kirk. For Kendra, the situation became deeply personal. People spoke for her, projected emotions onto her, turned her into a symbol without consent. The second major twist emerged when it became clear that the story could continue without its source. This forced some observers to question whether the situation was ever truly about secret sore, whether it was about unresolved suspicion and the appetite for scandal. Behind the scenes, insiders suggested relationships were strained, not because of proof, but because of pressure. Doubt alone was enough to erode trust. Conversations became guarded. Silence became political. Eventually, fatigue set in. The story stopped advancing and began circling itself. Reputations had already been shaken. Privacy had already been compromised. And the audience, having invested emotionally, felt entitled to closure that might never come. The final twist arrived not through confession, but through absence. No receipts surfaced, no confirmations followed. Days turned into weeks. And slowly, a realization took hold. If there were real secrets waiting to be exposed, wouldn't something tangible have appeared by now? That question reframed everything. The damage had not come from what was revealed, but from what people assumed was being revealed. Mendes' silence became ambiguous. Kirk's silence began to look strategic rather than guilty. And Kendra's refusal to engage emerged as the most powerful response of all. The story collapsed under the weight of its own assumptions. Yet it did not fully end. Because silence is not resolution. It is a pause. And in this world, all it takes is one comment to reignite everything. So the story ends where it began, with implication, not proof. And the reminder is unsettlingly simple. Sometimes the most dangerous secret is the one people invent together and believe long enough to make real. Now the question belongs to the audience. Was Mendes hinting at something real? Or did suggestion spiral beyond control? Was silence the smartest move or the riskiest one? That debate continues. And in that debate, belief often speaks louder than truth.